Hi, this is Julie Wiskowski from the Department of Anthropology at SUNY Buffalo State. I am presenting on behalf of my colleagues Susan McGuire, Melanie Mayberry, and Lisa Marie Anselmi. We received a Scholarship of Teaching and Learning Fellowship to assess student knowledge in and evaluation of our flipped Introductory Anthropology 100 course. At this time, we are still analyzing the data. I will, therefore, present what we have learned about teaching a flipped class. I've organized this presentation into two sections. In the first section, I will discuss the organization of our flipped A&T class. This is not the only way to organize a flipped classroom, but over the course of 5 semesters, this is what we have found works best for us. In the second section, I will discuss more general things that we have learned about flipping our classroom. Probably the most important thing to realize about our flipped classroom is that there are 4 of us working on it. This allowed us to flip the entire semester all at once. I and Mel Mayberry are biological anthropologists. We are responsible for preparing the biological anthropology half of the semester. Sue McGuire and Lisa Anselmi are archaeologists. They are responsible for preparing the archaeology half of the semester. We make this well known to the students. All names appear on the syllabus, and we all introduce ourselves to each of the sections on the first day of class. We tell the students that, although they will see only one of us in the classroom every day, they are being taught behind the scenes by experts in the topic. This also means that all 5 sections of A&T 100 are the same. Our syllabus is very detailed. When I taught A&T 100 as a lecture course, my syllabus was 5 pages. Now, our flipped syllabus is 9 pages long. Because this is most likely the first time that students will be enrolled in a flipped class, we want to make sure that every aspect of the course is explained to them on paper. During the first meeting of the semester, we go over the syllabus with the students. During the second meeting, the students take a syllabus quiz. The quiz is not collected and is not graded. It allows us to once again focus on the aspects of the class that are new to them and that they need to understand in order to function in this class. We do have undergraduate teaching assistants for the course. They receive 3 credits of independent study. They are responsible for grading notes at the beginning of class, helping answer questions during lab, and grading the 1-minute papers, which I will explain shortly. They also attend our weekly planning meeting. A TA is responsible for 2 sections of A&T 100, except for one TA, who is TA for 1 section, but is also the TA that all students email their questions to. We decided to have all student emails be sent to a TA because we anticipated that most student questions would be about logistics. For example, I can't find today's quiz on Blackboard. When do I need to take the quiz by? I'm going to miss class today. And that has been the case. If the TA needs our help in answering an email, then the TA will forward it to one of us. Our semester is organized around learning modules, with 1 learning module per day. Each learning module folder on Blackboard consists of an overview sheet, pre-work, which varies from videos, websites, and readings, and an online quiz. The overview sheet outlines the learning outcomes for that topic, what the pre-work consists of, and reminds them that they need to come to class with their notes on the learning module and at least a 70% on the quiz. Their earning at least a 70% on the quiz is part of what we call their ticket in. Also part of this is their notes on the pre-work. Because students work in groups during class, we need to hold the students accountable for doing the pre-work. It would be unfair to students if their group mates came to class without having done the pre-work. Before class begins, we check the grade book in Blackboard and note any student who did not earn at least a 70% on that day's quiz. If that student comes to class, we tell them, "You do not have your ticket in for today. I will see you next time when you have completed your ticket in. We generally have to tell a student this only once. When we first started teaching this course, we allowed students unlimited attempts taking the quiz. We realized that students were using several attempts to just look at the questions. We now allow 3 attempts. It is rare that a student can't earn at least a 70% after 3 attempts. At the beginning of every class, we have a 1-minute paper. The 1-minute paper is based on their pre-work. Here is the 1-minute paper for the learning module on race and humans. One purpose of the 1-minute paper is to get the students to look over their notes before class even starts. We then have 10 to 15 minutes of lecture reviewing the pre-work. We concentrate on the information in the pre-work that will be focused on in the lab. We then have lab for the rest of the period. Because of the nature of the in-class labs, there would be no way for us to offer makeup labs. In order to take account of legitimate reasons for students missing class, we do drop the 3 lowest lab grades for each student. We emphasize to the students that this gives them responsibility for what classes they truly need to miss. At this time, we have taught ANT 100 as a flipped class for 5 semesters to more than 700 students, and we have learned a lot over those 5 semesters. Probably the most important one, because it led to a very frustrating and stressful first semester for both us and the students, is to plan less for the in-class lab and then add material if there is time. Before the beginning of the semester, the first time we taught ANT 100 as a flipped class, I had already prepared all of the labs I was responsible for. I had completely overestimated how much the students could accomplish during the 60 minutes of lab time. Since then, I have cut back on those labs, and students learn more, even with less. When we plan a new lab, we underestimate what the students can accomplish, and then add more the next semester if students finished early. Related to this is the need to factor in that students work at different speeds. You have to be fine with students both finishing and therefore leaving early and students not finishing, as long as the majority of students are able to finish during class time. We decided against ever sending labs home with students to finish because that negates the whole concept of the flipped classroom. Because we require them to have a ticket in of their notes and at least a 70% on the quiz to even be allowed into class that day, we make sure that the time they spend on the pre-work counts. We do this by grading their notes each day, having those notes be worth 20% of their final grade, and by asking them to use their notes for the 1-minute paper and during lab. With so much emphasis on their note-taking, we also hope that we are instilling in them good study skills. We actually hope to study this in our next SOTL project. When we first thought about teaching ANT 100 as a flipped class, it seemed like a huge endeavor. Not only because we would be teaching the class in a different format, but also because the 4 of us would be team prepping it. We started with a list of 30 concepts that we believe students should understand after taking an introductory course in biological anthropology and archaeology. We then worked backwards from that list, making sure that those concepts were covered well enough in the pre-work and lab for students to understand them. Even with 4 of us team prepping this course, flipping ANT 100 was and continues to be a huge undertaking. When we first designed the course, the pre-work consisted of content, videos, websites, textbook chapters that are already available either in books or on the internet. Over the semesters, we consistently have created our own materials. For example, using Screencast-O-Matic, I have created a number of videos to replace videos or readings that I had gotten from the internet, and Screencast-O-Matic is the program that I'm using to record this video. I have also written a number of readings myself. The advantage of creating your own material, is twofold. The first advantage is that you can better tailor the pre-work to exactly what you want the students to learn. Very few, if any, videos or chapters cover the exact information that we want students to learn. The second advantage is that students hear your voice and read your words. Students who are new to the flipped classroom have the feeling that they are teaching themselves because we are no longer lecturing to them in class. It is not surprising they think this when they hear someone else's voice in the pre-work video or read somebody else's names on the pre-work chapter. Tied in with this is the need to still lecture to them. The first semester we taught ANT 100 as a flipped course. We spent the first 15 minutes in a combined think, pair, share, and student response system, that is clicker, activity. We posed a question and had the students respond with their clickers individually. Then they discussed the question and answers in their groups, and then answered the question again. After the second answers, we then discussed the information as a group. We generally went over 3 questions, which reviewed the information that was most pertinent to the lab for that day. On the course evaluations at the end of that semester, however, the most common criticism of the course was that we did not teach the students, that they had to teach themselves. Now, we start each day with a 10 to 15-minute lecture that prepares them specifically for that day's lab. We don't introduce any new information, but rather simply review the pre-work, and we have never gotten that criticism since. When we were designing ANT 100 as a flipped class, we decided that we wanted to infuse certain skills into the course. One skill is note-taking, which again is part of their ticket in, is graded heavily, and is tied to the in-class labs. Another skill is data collection and analysis. Many of the labs require students to collect their own data, to analyze that data, and to make conclusions from that data. This example is from the lab on human adaptation, where students simulate natural selection in the form of sickle cell disease and malaria on a population of marbles. They run through 3 generations, counting which marbles survive at the end of each. They have to analyze that data in the form of calculating allele frequencies in each generation, and then make conclusions about how the population changed over the course of the 3 generations. This is another example of data collection, analysis, and conclusion from the lab on early hominins. Students actually use rice to measure the cranial capacity of a modern human and a modern chimpanzee. They then calculate the cranial capacities of a number of early human ancestors. They plot all of these cranial capacities on a graph and answer several questions about the range and change in cranial capacity across early human evolution. We also interweave concepts and information through multiple learning modules. One way we do this is by requiring the students to put their notes and labs in a 3-ring binder and to bring that binder to class every day with them. Another way we do this is by asking them to refer back to earlier notes to answer a question in lab. This is why bringing their binders to class every day is so important. Here in the lab on late Homo, we ask them to answer a question using their notes from Human Adaptation, 7 learning modules prior, and from Evolutionary Theory 1, 9 learning modules prior. Here, on the right, they answer a question in the Paleolithic lab using their notes from Primates, 5 learning modules prior. A final way that we do this is by having them add to their own data sets. We have 3 learning modules on human evolution: early hominins, early Homo, and late Homo. I've already shown you that students measure, calculate, and plot cranial capacities on early hominins, which is in the upper left. In the next learning module, in the upper right, They are introduced to a few more species of human ancestors. They calculate the cranial capacities of these and add them to the graph where the earlier species have been plotted for them. In the next learning module on the bottom, again, they are introduced to a few more species, calculate their cranial capacities, and plot those on a graph with all earlier species. Instead of looking at these species per learning module and forgetting about them, this interweaving the information through several learning modules gives them a better sense of what happened to cranial capacity across hominin evolution. Finally, it is important to be open to revision. We have constantly revised this course semester to semester. These revisions are based on our own and the TA's observations, as well as the students' evaluations. These revisions have really strengthened this class. As discussed earlier, we meet each week to discuss the past week. During these meetings, we note the strengths and weaknesses of the labs and identify any issues we may have observed with student learning. These observations are noted, and we often revise the material for the next semester based on these assessments. Being open to feedback from all the participants, each other, students, and teaching assistants, has helped us to improve the class and improve student learning. If you have any questions about any of this, would like to see any of our course materials, or would like to discuss flipping your course, do not hesitate to contact me at wieckja@buffalostate.edu. Thank you.